Hello, everyone. Welcome to In the Kitchen. I'm your host, Sarah Chesney, and I wanted to quickly apologize. Neither my camera operator nor I realized that a filter had been applied to our camcorder when we were recording this segment. So the film looks slightly darker and has less color than normal, but otherwise is a regular episode. In this episode, we are sampling our Spice Club kit for the month of November, which is Anise seeds. I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed making them, I enjoyed sampling them, and I think you will too. So thank you for your patience and trials through our trials and tribulations of recording at the library.
Hello, welcome to the Westland Public Library's In the Kitchen program. I'm your host today, Sarah. I'm a librarian at the library, and today we're actually doing something in celebration of our Spice Month, Spice Club kit. Our Spice Club kits are handed out once every 3 months. We've had spices such as sumac and Aleppo pepper, and in November we are actually having anise seeds. Anise seeds, or Anise seeds, are from the Middle East, and they're really well known for their sweet licorice taste and go really well with cookies and bread. And so today I wanted to try a New York Times brown sugar and anise cookie, and this will be included in the Spice Club kit along with a sampling of the spice and 3 other recipes to choose from. Of course, you don't have to choose this recipe, but this is just a kind of test run of it. To get started, the recipe calls for 2 cups of flour, 1/3 cup of cornstarch, and then some kosher salt. Those have been added to this bowl right here and whisked together to incorporate evenly. It also calls for a 1/2 cup of brown sugar and then a full cup of butter. So this is not a health conscious cookie. And then we also have a teaspoon of vanilla extract. Now, the cornstarch is supposed to add a softening agent. It's supposed to break down the proteins of the flour. And so although there's not a lot of leavening agents here, the fact of the matter is that this should be a soft break apart cookie that you can share with your friends. You can either cut it up, or like I'm going to do, you can let it be in one solid piece, and then your friends or colleagues can break it off however they see fit. Like I said, to get started, you'll incorporate your dry ingredients, leaving out the brown sugar, because what you're going to do is first start by whipping the brown sugar and butter together, as you would do with a standard cookie recipe, such as chocolate chip cookies and stuff like that. We have this wonderful little mixer here, but I'm still getting used to it. So this calls for a medium-high speed. You know your device better. And you're going to whisk this together for about 2 to 3 minutes. And then if you need, you can spatula down the sides of the bowl. And just so you know, all the recipes are listed below, or all the ingredients are listed in the comment section below or the description below. So you'll have access to this as well. But you can always look up this recipe as well by Googling it, or a link will be included in the description. I really like this one because I don't have a little port at home, and so when I pour in the flour, it tends to go everywhere. Of course, you won't see all the carnage that happened earlier when I did this in the bowl, and it still went everywhere. It was really funny. So I'm just giving this a general go with the spatula. There we go. And I'm just scraping down the sides to incorporate the ingredients. I noticed that some brown sugar had been left at the bottom, so we will go ahead and do that. At this time, I mean, there's technically no eggs in this, so you could always sample it if you wanted. Now, this called for a light brown sugar. Leave a comment in the description below if you try a dark brown sugar. Of course, that will have a caramely more molasses flavor. I know some people really like that, so if you particularly enjoyed that, feel free to pass on the recommendation. Or if you tried it and it was terrible, let us know as well. Okay. So this has been nicely whipped. You can see kind of on the, I'm trying to show you, on the spoon how much softer it's become. You could go a little, it just depends on your your mixer at home, whether you need to continue or whether you're already done. At this time, we're going to start adding the flour mixture. And I got stuff all over my hands. There we go. And they recommend adding this on a slow speed to incorporate the ingredients, and scraping as you go as well. So if you are lucky enough to have a little funnel that leads into that area, I would use that at this time. I'm going to use this small little spoon so you can actually see what I'm doing without completely blocking myself. And this does go really slow on this one. You're probably going to find that yours incorporates it a lot more if you have a nice stand mixer. So thank you for your patience. This recipe was chosen. There was a number of good looking recipes also in the kit. Part of this was chosen, one, because it was doable on our small little kitchen here. Although I have to say we don't have the size of baking pan that they recommend in the recipe. It's a 7x10 baking pan. We simply don't have that room in our small little oven. But it sounded really nice. It sounded like a nice wintertime or anytime recipe that you could share. So if you're going out on through the holidays, going to see friends, although I know it is COVID, so maybe you're sharing with your family members at home, or your dog steals it, which mine inevitably will. This is a great recipe, so you can take as much or as little as you would like. So at this point, I'm going to kick this up just a little because this is on the lowest speed. And what's happening in my pan right now, or in the bowl right now, you can see how tired I am, I apologize. This is incorporating, it's actually becoming quite crumbly actually. These dry ingredients, there we go, have created kind of a sand-like texture, and those will slowly start to incorporate more and more and become one large chunk. So you're on the right path if this is what it starts to look like. I would say it's a little bit interesting compared to like a chocolate chip cookie dough or other doughs in which you add eggs, because the egg, although there is an egg mentioned in this recipe, you are actually coating it like you would a bread. So you're using it to baste and add that color, which is quite interesting. So basically this just has the dry ingredients that were mentioned, this wet ingredient, which is a teaspoon of extract, and then that's it for what's going in the actual dough. The butter is being added on top, the anise seeds are being added on top, so it was quite interesting, which is also why I chose it. And we're almost there. At this point I don't really need to scoop the sides down. It seems to be incorporating well. I'm trying to like honor their wishes and not blast it up like I would have. Giving the recipe a fair chance. But it is quite interesting to come here and work on this one and then go home and go, oh, it is slightly different and quite interesting. So at this point, I think I'm ready to add the vanilla extract, since that will require a little bit more mixing in order to incorporate, but this dough is looking really good, like what I would see if I was making a chocolate chip cookie dough. And while you're here, if you wanted to recommend a recipe that includes anise seeds or your favorite cookie recipe, feel free to drop that in the comment section. I'm a sucker for all cookies, so I don't have a favorite one. So I will try all the recipes that you recommend. Okay, that's well incorporated. And now what we're going to do is actually put this all into one chunk and then divide it into two large balls, and then we're going to cover it in saran wrap and refrigerate it for 2 hours, which I also think is quite interesting for a cookie dough. It's certainly not one that I've made in the past, which is probably you could probably name a couple of recipes that I should be trying that are very similar to that, and feel free to mention that in the comment section. But to freeze a cookie dough is more like a bread to me, or to freeze anything, to let it chill seems more like a dough, like you're letting it rest for a while, or a pie crust, which is very typical of what you do. You will get the crust ingredients all together and then refrigerate it for an hour and then roll it out, which is exactly what we're going to do. So to do this to a cookie seems very strange to me. Not in a bad way. I very much look forward to how it's going to come out. So I'm just going to get my hands dirty before realizing that I forgot my saran wrap in my little kitchen area. But as you can see, it very much feels like a cookie dough. It feels like what I would eat off of a spatula at home. So the fact that we're going to treat this like a pie dough is very interesting. So give me just a second. Welcome to our little storage area. And then we're going to divide this roughly in half and then get this into the saran wrap and then straight into the fridge. Now this does say refrigerate, and then later on you do freeze it. So just make sure to distinguish the two. If you do freeze it, just make sure that you actually have to thaw it out later. This could store up to 3 days, between 1 and 3 days. And so if you're planning on going to an event, you can get these prepared beforehand, eat your share, and then cook another batch later. And then also what you do here, which I find, with my buttery hands, that did not tear as well as I would have liked. Give me just a second. But one thing that is interesting about this as well, which is very similar to a pie crust, is that you're going to flatten it into a disc-like shape. Gosh, there we go. I'm sorry. So once you put it in here, you're going to cover it up and then flatten it, which, again, more like a pie crust than a cookie dough, but I very much look forward to where this is going. I have a fridge here. It's not quite as strong as it needs to be, or as cool as it needs to be to get this to a chill state that it sounds like it needs to be. So I'm going to take this upstairs after I've entangled this and refrigerate for an hour, again up to 3 days, and then we will go ahead and come back and roll it out, and then we'll go from there. I'll see you soon. Welcome back. So our dough has been in the refrigerator for quite some time now, up to an hour. My dough stayed in there for 2 to 3 hours. While that was cooling, I went ahead and started the oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit, and we will be cooking at that temperature. This calls for lightly flouring your surface, and I'm going to go ahead and also flour my rolling pin. I love these little rolling pins. These actually have measurements on the side, so while you're making a pie crust, this will actually give you a 1/6 or a 1/4 or whatever you need thick crust, millimeter or inches, whatever you need. Now, this calls for a 1/4 of an inch. Unfortunately, I don't have that because my son decided to take off with one of them, so I would have had a slightly tilted dough. So instead, I do have a 1/6 of an inch. I'm going to make it a little bit thicker before I hit the bottom. Hopefully, that's the intention anyways. I'm hoping intuition guides me, but again, very similarly, we're rolling out this dough as compared to a cookie dough that you would generally plop. This calls for kind of an oblong shape. For sharing, I think is really up to you, but it will fit your baking pan more readily if it was in an oblong shape. So, but I can imagine you making this into a yeah, I'm already touching it. That's really funny. This is actually quite a thick dough as well. So we'll take advantage of the rolling pin and just cook it for slightly less time since it'll be a little bit thinner. Okay. And what I also liked about this recipe is it sounded like there was a lot of leniency in how it looked. So since people were going to be breaking it apart and stuff like that, it doesn't have to look beautiful. It doesn't have to have those crisp edges. I assume that it's going to expand, so all the craggliness that you kind of see sometimes in ham pies will go away, but I'm actually not quite sure. This is all quite new to me. We're learning together right now. So I rolled this out. It's actually a little bit thinner than I was supposed to, and I'm going to put this on my baking sheet with a little bit of parchment paper. It's a little bit, it's exactly the same size as my little pan, which is great. Luckily, you're going to be able to roll yours out to the size you need. I'm going to stick that in the oven. Now at home, yours is going to definitely be on time. Mine might take an extra 5 to 10 minutes as it does with the small, what is equivalent to an easy bake oven. So we'll be back when the dough is, actually, I forgot to mention, we have to freeze it first, and this will actually go in the freezer. So we're going to freeze it for 10 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and whisk an egg white and base that on top, and then we're going to add the anise seeds on top, which is where the anise is coming from. So through the power of magic, in just a second, we're going to come back with a beautifully spiced, hopefully wonderfully tasting dough. So see you very shortly. Welcome back. So it was 10 minutes of freezing and then roughly 15 to 17 minutes of baking. And in fact, that was pretty standard time in our oven as well. It actually rose quite a little bit more than I was expecting it to, which is great. It was quite interesting to see. And then it started to turn really golden brown, and it was almost, as my colleague and cameraman had mentioned, it was kind of turning into an elephant ear, because after we brought it out, we sprinkled it with a little bit of sugar. And so now there's nothing left to do but give it a try. It was already kind of breaking as I was pulling up the parchment paper or wax paper. It was starting to fall apart, so I can definitely see how this is conducive to sharing it with people. You can have as big or as little pieces as you want, but I'm going to go ahead and give it a shot. Let's see. You can really taste the sweet licorice when you eat some of the seeds, and that's really fabulous. Earlier, I had stuck in a piece. I apologize, but I could taste more of the granulated sugar, or the sugar that we put on top. So I was quite concerned. It's like, oh, I guess you're not really going to taste the anise seeds. But no, those are actually quite spectacular, and that's coming from somebody who's not in love with licorice. It's definitely something that I tolerate, but I don't seek it out. So this actually might be on my list of things to make in the future. I actually highly recommend this. It's fun. It breaks up easily. I think anybody can justify eating it, and it's delicious. So thank you for joining us in this special of our In the Kitchen program. If you are near the library in November, you're more than welcome to stop by and pick up a Spice Club kit if it's there. If not, in January we will be actually trying the Anise pods, which is actually the little star-shaped spices that you typically see in a lot of spice kits and like chocolate mixes, hot chocolate mixes and teas, chai teas and stuff like that. It's going to be fun to do a comparison between the two. One, this, which is Middle Eastern, and that, which is more Asian. So thank you for joining us today. I hope you have a wonderful afternoon.
No, that is pretty good. With the, it's like a crispy crunch. It's not. I did say it looked like an elephant ear with the sugar on top, but no, it really tastes different. With the, it's a whole different texture. It's flaky. It's like a pastry almost, and the seeds really do come through. I mean, with the, it does bring that licorice, that sweetness to it. It has a, but it has an earthy texture, a taste to it as well. You can see, it's getting all over me. But no, this is